So I was at the beach last weekend and there was a Central Asian family grilling skewered meats and it smelled amazing. And I got inspired to do some research into Central Asian kebabs. So today I'll be making two simple yet delicious Uyghur style kawap, aka kebabs. The first one is just seasoned cubed meat. So to get started, let's cut 500 grams of lamb into 2cm cubes. It's ideal if they've got a little fat on them, since that gamey flavor is something that's sought out in this dish. Now throw those cubes in a bowl and cover them up with cold water. This is meant to tenderize the meat while also allowing it to soak up the seasoning better. Cover it up and set it aside for at least an hour while we work on the other version, which will be a mincemeat kebab, also known as keema kawap. So cut another 500 grams of lamb into 2cm cubes. To that I'll add half a thinly sliced onion. And go ahead and knead those onions to break down the cell walls and release some of the juices. This will help marinate the meat and tenderize the onions, so we don't end up biting into solid chunks of onion later on. It also seems to reduce the sharpness of the onions, since I guess it's releasing some of the sulfur compounds way before it gets to your mouth, which is a great idea for salads. Now let's season with some salt and pepper, as well as some freshly ground cumin. This is an absolute necessity in Uyghur cuisine, and it is so much more fragrant than the pre-ground stuff. Along with that, let's add in some freshly ground coriander seed and some chili powder. Now we're going to mince this finely. You can use a food processor or chop it by hand like you would for a dumpling filling, but I wanted to test out my new meat grinder attachment, so that's what I'll be using. And if you're doing the same, you'll want to run it through twice to get the texture that we want. Once it's finely ground, we want to knead it for a few minutes to develop some bounce in the meat, and this will help it stick together on the skewer later on. Then we'll divide it in quarters into egg-sized balls by rolling it in well-oiled hands and tossing it back and forth a few times. Back to the cubed lamb, you can see the water has absorbed a lot of the myoglobin that was turning the meat red, and when we drain the water, the meat is now a light pink color. Weird. Let's season with salt, some freshly ground cumin, and some freshly ground black pepper, before mixing it thoroughly and setting it aside while we prep our grill. And if you're liking this video and you want to see more of my international experiments, then hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you'll know the second that my next video gets released next week, because I'm here every week. Now, I've mostly seen people using shallow rectangular yakitori style grills, but I've got a standard cheapo round American style grill, so I'll be using that, but removing the grate so the meat can basically rotisserie over the coals. So light up your charcoal, hopefully something fancier than this easy ignite stuff, and wait for it to turn white. And while that's heating, let's prepare our kawap. Kawaplar? Not sure if that's the proper pluralization. Now, I couldn't find the flat, wide skewers that are usually used for this, so I went to the hardware store and MacGyvered some out of some aluminum L-beams. For the cubes, you want to thread them on loosely. Too tight and they won't cook as evenly on the sides. And for the keema, stab the skewer through the middle of the ball, and I ended up using 2 balls per skewer. Then use your thumb and index finger to squeeze it into a long log. Yeah, don't worry, it tastes a lot better than it looks. Throw those guys on the grill, rotating every few minutes as it starts to take on some color. Then once it reaches a safe internal temperature for lamb, that's 145 Fahrenheit in the US, serve it up with a nice cucumber tomato salad. This one's a generic Central Asian salad with a yogurt dressing that somewhat resembles kurutob from Tajikistan. Video link up in the corner if you're on mobile or desktop. So both of these are beautifully seasoned. The cumin and the coriander add an earthy and lemony note that pairs perfectly with the lamb. The cubes have a golden sear on the outside, but they're perfectly tender on the inside. and the keema has the texture and the flavor of a juicy lamb burger. So break these out at your next barbecue, take some photos, share them on Instagram, tag me in them at Kevin All Over the World, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.